All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, everybody, welcome to the PayX end of year webinar. We will go over all the steps that you will need to do in PayX to close your year and get into the 2017 payroll year. So starting off, first thing we need to do is to process any fringe benefits. This can happen with your final payroll of the year, or you can run it as its own payroll. But the easiest way is to start. You'll need hours codes, one for an in and one for, or no, income codes, I'm sorry. You'll need income codes, one for an in and one for an out. These would be for situations where you need to add the value of something to their federal gross, but you aren't going to give them money. So maybe a car allowance, or if they have a company car, if they have company uniforms, anything like that, that you need to add the value to their federal gross. They need to be taxed on it, but you aren't actually giving them any money. We already have a couple set up. Our in is set up like this. Again, you can make it any description, any check description you want, but you want your taxable status as an A, so it's all taxable. Your out is going to be the same thing, except for our taxable status, we want it exempt from everything. And we'll show you how that works here in a second. So once you have your code set up, or you may already have them set up from prior years, you can go ahead and start a new payroll. Again, enter your dates if you want to use like 1/1/16 to pay ending 12/31. And then you can give it the 12/31 check date as well. Give it a special period, maybe 9/9, ODJFS. Should be 0 for this. Your deducts, you would probably just want your taxes. If it's pensionable, make sure you include your pension. First question is PayX update. Yes, there will be a PayX update. It's getting finished up in the build and testing. It should be out on our website here shortly. Monday, I'm being told. It's going out Monday. It'll be on the user forum.
Betas are going out.
Oh, betas are going out Monday. Once they have it for about a week and they don't report any issues, we'll release it to everybody. And you'll get an e-news for that. If you need help setting it up or getting it installed, just give us a call. As far as either of these updates for finance or payroll, they do not have to be installed before you do year-end processes. I don't think there's anything in the updates that directly pertains to the end-of-year processes. It's mainly bug fixes that you guys have found throughout the year and small process improvements.
W2 changes that there weren't any.
What is it?
W2 changes that there weren't any.
Yeah. That's okay, Jane. Okay. So now we've started our special payroll. Again, if you want to just include it with your last pay of the year, you can do that. If you want to make it a special payroll, it'll probably look something like this. Our calculate weeks shouldn't make a difference. Our accrue frequency, leave it out or make it a 0. Barb, we'll go over a different way to add fringes a little bit later.
Whenever the IRS posts them.
As far as tax tables go, as soon as we have anything from the IRS, we send out an e-news and get those to you guys.
They weren't there yesterday.
Debbie said she looked yesterday and they were not there. So as soon as we have that information, we will give it to you. Okay, so we have this. We can go ahead and update. And I have batch 1. You pull up your employee. So if we have to add money that needs to be taxable, but do not want to actually give a check, we would do our income code in, whatever code that is, and enter our amount as a positive. We would do a second row as an out, whatever code that is. We're going to do it as a negative. So this will net to a 0. They won't actually get any money, but when we excalc it, you'll see that the gross will be added to the federal, state, and city taxes. These you can zero out so that it doesn't try to actually pay any of these taxes for them, because they're not actually getting any money. And then you can update. From that point, if you have more employees, you can go ahead and enter those as well. Same thing, do your in. Do your out as a negative. Calculate them. If you do them with your final payroll and the employee is getting their normal pay, you won't have to come in and adjust any of these items. You'll notice this is another good example. This person has other deductions, and this gross amount is not going against it. We want to up these. So that's basically what you want it to look like. It's going to add whatever amount to their gross for federal, state, and city, but it's not going to give them any money. It's just going to update the record for their W-2. Once we have that, we can update. All the rest of the payroll process is exactly the same. You can go through and do your detail work register. Again, make sure all of this looks correct. Looks like I have some other timesheets out here. Thought I deleted all those. Someone must be in here. But you can see these are the ones that we're looking at. We want to see a 0 net on the ones that we had. Here's my other one. There's my 0 net. Once we have those, again, just go through the normal payroll process, and when you update, it'll add that gross amount to the federal, state, and city withholdings. Okay. Our next step, once we've finished our last payroll, even before that, you should be running it throughout the year. But you need to run your W-2 exception report. And you want to run this wide open. Say OK. And this will give you any person that you're going to have errors with on their W-2, and then tell you for what reasons they will give you that error. If the federal or state deferred comp is incorrect, if the Medicare is incorrect. We'll go ahead and look at one of these employees, employee 7. If you have someone on that report, you can then run the W-2 exception by employee by pay. Put in your employee number. It didn't find any exceptions. That's okay. The next thing we want to do to look for that is to run our W-2 backup report. Run it for just the employee in question. Year is current. If you've already rolled the year, you would put in 2016. and it'll give us this information. So it's telling us that the deferred comp amount is in error. What it's doing, the calculation it's doing, is it's taking this gross amount and subtracting the federal gross, and that tells it how much deferred compensation this person had. Since none of these codes down here are picking up that $100 difference, that's why it's throwing this deferred comp in error. Once we know that there is a true deferred comp error, we can go back to the employee record. You'll want to go to your year-to-date screen. Look at your withholdings, and the difference should jump out to you. We were off by $100, and we have exactly $100 in this insurance deduction. So this insurance looks to have been deferred, but it's not marked as deferred in deduction maintenance. So what we would do, once we find out the issue, go to our deductions, look at our INS, and we can see it is federal and state exempt, but there's no information for this W-2 box. If you drop this down, you can see that there is deferred compensation. So we need to mark that as deferred. You need to pick whatever plan this goes to. If you're not sure, contact the provider, whatever insurance or 401k, whatever that is. They should be able to give you the plan letter. You need to put that in here and then update. Once you've done that, you can rerun the W-2 exception report. You'll see our employee 7 is no longer on there. Same thing if we were to run the W-2 backup report for our one employee. You'll see this $100 now shows up as deferred comp. It bridges the gap between the gross and the federal, so you get no deferred comp error. All right, so run those exception reports and make sure you clean up any of those exceptions that you do get. From time to time, you will get Medicare exemptions that are just rounding issues. If you have any questions on those, give us a call. We can take a look, make sure that's what it is. Oh, all right. Once we have that squared away, we want to go ahead and start reviewing our employee files to make sure that we have everything set up correctly, make sure addresses, if anybody's address has changed throughout the year, if we need to terminate any employees or retain any records. The easiest way to do this is with a user-defined report. I have one in here already called EMP. If you don't already have one and you're comfortable in user-defined reports, you're going to name it whatever you'd like, use the employee file, and then add whatever data that you would like to see, and then make sure your sortables, whether you want to sort by last name or first name, make sure that those are in the sort table. So these are the things I want to see, and another thing, I want to see the retain flag, because I want to see if anyone was terminated, this T date, and if we're going to retain that record or go ahead and leave it in prior years. Once you have this set up, you can go ahead and execute, run it wide open, and this will give you a list of all of your employees. This one is sorted by last name. Run through, make sure that everything is good. I didn't add address here. If you wanted to confirm addresses with employees, this will be the time to do it. But we can see anybody that has a termination date. It's going to look at this record whether it's blank, a Y, or a no, to retain that record. If it's a Y, it's going to go ahead and move this employee into the next year file. So if you have summer help that seem to come back, you have the same people come back every year, you know the people that are going to be back, but you added term dates for maybe this past year, you want to go into those records and make sure that the retain flag is on. It's going to save you a little time. They can still be pulled forward, but this will just save you some time going forward. Anybody that has a term date and this is blank or a no, it will not retain the record and there will not be a current year file for them. They'll only be available in prior years. So use this to confirm all of your employee data, especially the retain flags. Make sure that you're retaining all the correct employees that you need to. Our next step is going to be reviewing all of our deduction codes. Again, a user-defined report is the easiest way to do this. I used called mine deduct main for deduction maintenance. You're going to use the deduct file if you don't already have something like this. And you can add the fields. I did the code, the description, the payee, the W-2, and the plan. So those two things that we just changed to fixed employee 7, we could have caught those by running this deduction report as well. Go ahead and execute. Okay. So the first things I'm looking for, and we'll go back and we'll look at that INS deduction. So the INS, and this was a D for deferred in our plan, in our W-2, and it does have a plan code. So that's what we're looking for. As far as double check all your pensions, make sure all of your pension codes, PERS, have the PD as pension, a P or a PD, and then make sure that your plan code has that same associated letter. Again, if you don't know, contact the pension. They'll be able to tell you what code that is. As far as all of your school taxes, you need to find your school taxes and make sure that in this description field, they all have the FD and the 4-digit school number. This is very important this year. They're making everybody do this, and we are pulling the data directly from this description field. So if these say school district, Inglewood or Inglewood School District, something like that, you need to go out, find the school district number, and change the description to an SD in the 4-digit number. Anything after that you can add. So if you want to add, the Inglewood or the city afterwards, you can, but it must start with this 6-character combination, SD and then the 4-digit school code. Okay. Next ones we want to look at are the 125 plans. I have a couple here. The 125 medicals. We want to make sure, one, that it's deferred and that the plan is an M for the 125 medical. Our 125Cs, if you offer these, same thing. We want to make sure it's deferred, and your plan code can be a C or a B10. I guess B10 was something new for last year, and they let you use either one of them. Any questions on our deduction maintenance or employee cleanup? Okay. So the next step, Barb, this is where we can add fringe benefits or add amounts taxable onto the W-2 for maybe employees that are no longer there. or you just prefer to enter them this way, it doesn't make a difference. We start in our reports menu down at the bottom under our W-2 processing menu. We have the W-2 add-on maintenance. When you click on this, you can bring up an employee. If you need to add fringe benefits, this is the box 14 fringe. All you need to do is append a row. You can type in a description for it. Add the amount. If you're going to add it, if you want it to add to the federal gross, federal state gross, you need to put a Y here. If it's just for information purposes, you need to put an N. So again, add your description, put in your amount. If you're adding, if you want this amount to be added to the taxable gross, put a Y for add, do an N for just have the information on the W-2. It's not going to add that amount to the total. Go ahead and update, and then that'll be added to their W-2. All right. The next step we're going to do, we need to run reports for our end of year to get all of our year-end data for audit and just to have in case we need to look back on it. So the mandatory reports that you'll want to have under the report menu, first one will be your deduction carryover report. Most get paid because it's the end of the year, but you may have some deductions that are going to carry over into the new year because they're not due to be paid yet. You want to run this, whether it's a 0 or whether it's you are carrying it over. You want to have this saved as a PDF and go ahead and print a copy of it so you have 2 records of it. If you have multi-city taxes, where you collect taxes for your own and other cities, you'll want to have the multi-city tax report. Again, for your date, run it 1/1/16, 12/31/16, and this will give you all of the multi-city taxes that you will have per person. It'll tell you the city, give you the breakdown for each person, and then break it on that and show you the gross and the amount of the tax withheld for each of those cities. Again, you'll want to print and save that report. The next one is our payroll accrue report. Most of these are under your standard reports, under your report menu. Your standard report, you can put in your beginning date, first of the year, run to the end of the year. Your classes, you have sick, vacation, comp, personal, commas to separate, no spaces between. If you have other classes, you can add those. Those are just the 4 most common. Answer Y or N, yes or no. Do you want to break on the department? And then run that off. And this will give you all of the beginning balances, how much that costs based on the current employee rates, how much they earned, how much they earned through journal entries, how much they used through journal entries, and an end balance with a value. So this will actually give you your grand totals, and this is what most people care about, is the grand total value of all the accrue time that you have left out there. So if every single person retired today and you pay out all of your sick, you would pay out $34,000 in sick time. All right. We need a complete check report. we'll go ahead under our processing menu, under our check reconciliation, we have a complete check report. We want to run it for, again, 1/1/16 to 12/31. We want to run this, keep this again, save and print. It'll give you all of your checks, all of your T checks or transfer checks, all the deductions, and give you a total. The next thing we want to do is our OPRS non-contributing report. Under your reports, under your state and federal, you have your OPRS non-contributing report. We run this one. We want to run it for 2016. You should know your OPRS code. If you don't, you can contact them to get that information. And we're going to say OK. So a few things to look at here. One is pulling all the vendors that are not, that should be reported to OPRS as not contributed. So you can see we have 8 vendors here, but this line will tell you how many vendors are actually getting reported. And it's only 4 vendors, and that's because the OPRS status or the position is not filled out for the other ones. So this one, this one, this one, and this one are all in the file to be reported. None of the ones with blanks in either of these fields are going to be reported in the file. That's what this line is telling you right here. If you need to fix any of those items, you can go into the employee maintenance. So we can go back to Steve here, 177. Here's our OPRS status. We would want to change this to whatever it was that why they are not contributing to OPRS, and then we want to put in the the position title, and that should fall under this title here, I believe. They didn't add a new field for it. Yeah. So that'll need filled out along with this. When we update, we can go back and rerun the report. Now we should see 5 employees are in the OPRS file. Because we added this OPRS status, it's now going to include them in the file. So make sure, proof this report really well. Make sure it's correct. Make sure you have the correct number in the file. And as soon as you run this, this file is created out in your data drive that can be uploaded to OPRS website. So some optional reports to run. You can run your quarterly payroll return. Again, you would just want to use the 12/31. Just want quarter 4. And this is always no. We no longer print the 941 form. And then you would have your IRS 941 detail in report form saved and printed, ready to roll the year. You don't have to worry about it. If you do forget, it's not a big deal. We can run this report from history, and it's just under your historical quarterly payroll return. And again, at that point, you would just put in 16 in your quarter 4. And it would go back and it would find that same data in the past year 16 for quarter 4. Won't work now because we're still in 16. right. All right. We skipped over. We'll do ACA. We'll get to it. It's its own thing. So I'm just saving it for a little bit later before we actually roll the year. Debbie, so when you ran your OPR's non-contributing report, termed employees didn't show in the file. I'm not 100% sure. I will have to follow up on that. But you are correct. If you take the term date out, they will get added back into the file, and that could just be the workaround. I will follow up on that and let you know. I have not seen the release notes for the current version. That's the only reason I don't know if that was one of the items they fixed. All right, got my note. I will ask programming about that. Thank you. Again, as soon as we have any info for tax tables, we'll get those out to you. So far, we haven't seen any. But again, as soon as we get those, there'll be an e-news explaining those and the screenshots so you can set up the tax tables. Okay, so back to a few of your optional reports. You can, another good one, your summary fund report by date or by account or both. Again, you can run it wide open. And it'll break it down by your accounts that are on the employee records, how much was paid through each date of the year, and then give you a total for the entire year. Possibly a good budgeting tool. Our next one, our miscellaneous deduction report. Again, just run check dates 1/1/16 to 12/31/16. And this will break down each of the deductions for the employee and how much was withheld for each of your deductions. So if you have discrepancies later on, you can come back to this report and quickly see how much was deducted for a given employee in a given deduction. All right. If you have any pay category reports that you run on a monthly or any kind of basis, you'll want to get those because, again, this is a current year report. It will not find prior year data. So if you have like an overtime report like this, you'll want to make sure that you run this before you roll the year. And again, this is set up more or less how you want it, how many hours, the amounts for various overtime or fringe benefit codes that you have. You will want to run off your, keep clicking on that processing, your okay, quarterly pension accrue report. Again, run this 1/1/16. If you wanted to just do your fourth quarter, if it's something you still run quarterly, you can do that. Enter a pension code that you have. Probably do execute and stay because you have multiple pension codes. but it'll give you the employee, the name, the gross amount that they had, and then the accrue or your employer's portion of that pension amount. And that, again, we have limited data, but yours will be full for an entire year. Run that report for each of your pension codes. So you have that. Your fringe benefits report. If you have PERS carrying over, the report will still be accurate for what was withheld. It reads from timesheets, and then you would just process the PERS check into the next year if you're combining that with maybe your first pay of 2017. That report itself will still be accurate as long as the pay has been updated. It'll show you exactly from 1/1/16 to 12/31/16 how much was taken out in PERS or in a pension code. Our fringe benefits report. This will give us a breakdown of overtime, comp, vacation, holiday, sick. Other, I'm told, is like bereavement, funeral leave, jury duty. Those codes would fall under the other category. And it gives you the amount paid, the hours, and any balance that they would have for any of these accrued classes. All right. And then again, just be sure if there's a report that you like and you want to have it ran, make sure you run it in the current year. Some reports can be ran in priors, but most of these are only current year reports. So just get the normal reports you would run for any payroll process, but just run them for an entire year. All right. At this point, once you finish your final payroll, you ran your reports. You have everything entered that you need to. This can be before or after W-2 print, doesn't make a difference. You'll want to do an archive save of your payroll system. This happens every night automatically. So if you have a good stopping point in a day, you can go ahead and stop, make sure no data is entered, go home, come back, let IT know, or whoever runs the backup, to go ahead and pull last night's backup, and you need to mark that as your end of year save and do not overwrite it. Barb, if you have a report that you know can be ran in prior, none of that would have changed. You can still run those reports in prior. Just every report is not available in priors. So the ones you know you want, make sure you run in current. If you know it runs in prior, you'll be just fine. Okay, so about your, back to the archive save. So you want to make sure that we get a good backup of your payroll system once you are done entering everything and you have everything ready to go to roll the year. If that's in the middle of the day or you just want to have us do it, give us a call. We will go ahead and run that and make sure that you save that to some sort of hard media so that you have that in case something goes wrong during the file reset, or we just need to have access to a 2016 version of your payroll account. Again, do not process your file reset without having a good backup of your payroll system. Okay, so at this point, we're going to show W-2s, how to print W-2s with MagFiler, how to print W-2s with authority forms. You can do this before or after you roll a year, does not matter. We'll go ahead and do it now. First step in that process is going to be our W-2 backup report. We would run everybody, do your current. If you run Medicare employees versus non-Medicare employees, I know there's a couple that do. You can add your Ys up here and get just your Medicare employees, and then do your Ns if you separate them. If not, just run them all together. Say OK. And this will be all of your W-2 data. You can take a look at the bottom, make sure your totals are correct. Go ahead and save and print that. All right, if we have any add-ons, we showed you how to do the add-on maintenance for fringe benefit. You also have box 12 add-ons, which are a popular option or need data entered. You can come in and do the same thing. DD is the most common, cost for health insurance, just a reported figure. You can come in and manually add those here. If you need any box 14 remarks, you can add those as well. But for your box 12, you can also do an import. If you're going to do an import, you need to create an Excel file that's going to tell it exactly how to import all of this data. I go to, I'm going to go find it again. Sorry. So this is what that file would look like. It's a CSV file, column 1 being the employee number, column 2 being the code, and column 3 being the amount that you want to report. Set them up just like this. You don't want any commas or anything like that in the file. To be safe, you can highlight a column, format your cells, and just format them as text. Easiest way to do it. You won't run into any issues. Once you have all of this data entered into your Excel file, you want to do a File, Save As, pick wherever you want to save it, choose whatever name you want to give it, make sure it's a CSV file down here, and say Save. Mine already exists. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite it. You'll always see this pop-up box when you save a CSV file. So go ahead and say yes. You want to keep it in this format. Go ahead and close. It'll ask you if you want to save again. You already saved it, so you don't need to save again. Once you have that file completed, in your reports, you have your box 12 import. In this, you'll want to type in the entire path. It's already there. A quick way, if you don't know the exact path that you have, you can get it from the file. Right-click on your properties. I believe it gives you... Okay, it'll give you everything but the file name. So this location, you'll need that. And you can paste that in here. Put in a backslash, and then type in your file name. Make sure you add your file extension. That's a common call we get. If you don't add that file extension on the end, it won't be able to find the file. It won't be able to pull it in. So put your path in, say OK. This will complete the import. We'll say okay. If you have any errors in the file, it will pop up here. Like if you had an employee number wrong, incorrect. If you had the wrong letter codes in there, it would flag all that information. This told us that everything was fine and everything was uploaded. We'll say okay. Another thing to remember, if you mess that up, this will overwrite any previous amounts for the same employee in the same code. So if you forgot employees or anything like that, just know that if you have loaded prior data, that data will be overwritten if it's the same employee in the same code. It will use the new amount. If you need to check or manually change anyone, after all of those are imported, you can come into maintenance, see the employee. There's that box 12DD that we added. You can also run, as soon as you get done with all of your imports and add-ons, you want to run the W2 add-on report. Okay, another update for the box 12 import. If you have multiple codes, not just DDs, you can add those all into the same file, and again, for multiple employees. So if you have an employee that needs a W code and a DD code, those can all be included in the same CSV file. Should have no problem bringing those in. But this will break down the entire list of your employees. Anyone that has any of the add-ons, you can come through, proof these, and make sure all of your add-ons are added correctly. I click on that processing image every time. Okay, so we've done our add-on report. Everything looks good. We're ready to move on to form print. If you're running straight to a pin-fed printer and you have your forms, this is where you will do all of your printing from. You can do your alignment, line your forms up. Once you have that, you can pick your form, add your tax year. If you wanted to run certain departments at a time or certain employees at a time, you could do that. Again, with the Medicare yes and no's, you can do that. Or just say okay, and it would start running them off to whatever printer you have selected here. For the majority that are using MagFiler or even Authority forms, we still need to run through this step to build our file. What we would do is we would do the same thing, put a 1 for your form type, add your year, but just send it to local because you don't really need these to print out. You're going to print them out through the other application. We'll say okay. If you have additional cities, if someone had more than 2 cities withheld and they need an additional W-2 form for that, it's going to go ahead and create that now. We'll say okay. Again, this is what the raw data would look like. You don't need it. It can be closed. Again, this is the other one. If you are running forms after you've done your file reset, the only difference would be to make sure to check this use prior year files. If you've already rolled the year, just make sure you check that box. Everything else will work the exact same. Close that. Once again. So all of our MagFiler, Authority, Forms, IRS files are all going to be found under this Mag Media menu. First you'll want to drop down and pick which one you want to do. We'll do MagFiler first. Put in our tax year. Employer type, most are S's, I believe. Double check all of your contact information. Add your PIN. If you don't know that, you'll have to contact the IRS. those items, make sure everything is correct again, and say OK. So this will tell us all the files that it created out in our data folder. It's going to do our regular W-2s, and then it's going to bring in our extra W-2s. This is our extra city file. The Q and the R aren't used, so don't worry about those. Those aren't used anymore. Just the W-2 is our main file, and the extra W-2 would be any additional cities that need printed on the second form. So once those are out there, we need to open up our Magfiler. Magfiler will be going out very shortly. They are flash drives this year, so you will get a flash drive. Instructions with screenshots will come with that as well for printing all of this. And again, those should be out shortly. As soon as we get them, we turn around and mail them right out to you guys. We're expecting them any day. So when you click Continue with Magfiler, you may or may not already have a payer set up. If you don't, if you've done your 1099 payer, you'll need to create a new one for your W-2. So we'll do a new payer. Wow. Sorry, guys. I'm in a conference room. I'm not used to this keyboard. All right. Enter all of this information. Contact. Email. Telephone number. And then under your filing type, you want to make sure you select W-2s. Take off your e-file and add on your batch print. For your state, you want to add your OH and then your state ID number. For the W-2, you have it. Okay. For your employment type, again, you're going to be regular, and then the kind, that's going to be your S again. Your state, local government. Oops. Okay. So that should be your setup. Once everything looks good, you can save it. Again, if you mess any of this up, you can just pull it up and delete it, do it all over again. So we have our W-2. We're ready to add our payees in. So we click on payees. We're going to import that file that we created in PayX. So we'll do an import. We're going to import a predefined Magfiler import format. And now we need to find our file. Again, this will be out in your data file. Okay, so here's all those files that it told us it created. Start with our W-2. Say open. Say open. If you've already pulled people in and something maybe went wrong, you can override your existing payees by clicking this box. If you have multiple employee numbers set up with the same social because they have different deductions or they get different pays, and that was the easiest way to do it, you can combine amounts using that. Okay, Teresa, the steps we're going over is it's in the very back of the documentation. It's kind of like a supplement to the back. It is on maybe not unless All of this will be in your mag filer instructions. Yeah, we just put the how to do add-ons and that. This would all be part of your mag filer instructions. You'll get that when you get your mag filer flash drive. If you have any issues, again, if you want to set up a time to have one of us on the phone with you and go through this together, we'd be more than happy to do that. Just let us know. Give us a couple day lead time. We'd be happy to run through this with you. So we'll say OK here. We need to tell it what our format type is. This is a CMI W2, so we click on the CMI. We say select. Okay, your file's imported and they found errors. We'll say OK. It'll always bring you up a total here. You can print this or run the report for it. You have so many other reports with this exact same data, it's probably not necessary. You can always come back and get it later if you really want it. This is going to be our error list. So our state must be a valid state abbreviation for number 14, and our Medicare tax is not 145% for record 21. Okay, so go ahead, print that out when you get it. I'm going to go ahead and just write them down. So number 14 and number 21, need to change the state on 14 and the Medi for 21. Kind of
make it large.
Okay. Expand this out because they make it
right click.
Yeah, so you can change your sort in here because these are the record number they're referring to. So you can sort by that record number. Makes it a little easier to find. So we were looking at 14, and they didn't like the state code on here because for whatever reason it was entered without a comma on the employee record. So we just need to add in the OH and delete it from our city. Okay. For our record 21, sorry I had to keep zooming in and out, but it's easier for me. So they're looking at our Medicare wages. So they're saying we had $6,166.40 in Medicare wages, and we withheld no Medicare tax. More than likely, you won't find yourself in this. Yeah, you won't find yourself in this situation, and this would be something that you would catch on your exception report. We just didn't go through every employee. If we go back, we can look at this employee and take a look at what happened. Nope. We look at our year-to-date. So you can see that we had these Medicare grosses, but we never withheld Medicare. Probably just an error during the payroll process on any number of these. Yeah, we must have tried to. Again, you guys shouldn't run into any of these issues. You're not playing in a test environment. So,
start date before April 1st, 2015.
Yes, good point. Debbie pointed out if you do have employees that had a start date before
April 1st, 1986.
April 1st, 1986, they do not need to have Medicare withheld. So that would be the first thing to look for if you had something like that. Again, those are few and far between, but definitely something to keep in mind. Normally, what we would see here, I'll go ahead and show you what we would normally have. Should we do a quick calculation? Okay, so this tax should have been around down to $89. So what we might see is $89.39 was held, and MagFile would flag an error for this, because if you do 6166.40 and you multiply that out by 0.0145, you actually get 89.41. So you can see that there's a 2-cent difference here. MagFiler does care about pennies. We really don't. That's just a rounding error that we discussed earlier. You would just move past that one if you had something like that. If you have any questions on that, absolutely give us a call. We can run through those, make sure they are indeed just rounding errors and not an actual Medicare difference. So we've corrected our issues. We are now ready to print forms. We can come up and we can do a print forms. Oh, we need to import our additional files first for our additional cities. That is accurate. So I've always imported them like this. Find. I would browse. And I make sure I'm not overriding, and I make sure I'm not combining so that it doesn't issue it a second one, or it doesn't issue it just one, or try to issue it just one. Again, it'll update our totals. And then now I just need to find who had an additional city. Again, you can use your sort by your name. Okay, so you can see this person's actually going to get two forms. Their first one is their main one. They've got different cities, and then their second one is going to include their third city. So you can actually pull that extra one in and combine them all into one file. So now we're ready to print our forms. Barb, I did add them to the same file. You can do either. If you wanted to set up a second payer and pull those in separately, you could do that. Again, I just added them to the same file. As long as when you do your import, don't check either one of these boxes. If you override, it's going to override. And if you do the matching socials, obviously these people are going to have matching socials, and it's going to try to combine them. We don't want to do that. So if you're going to add your extras, make sure both these boxes are unchecked. Okay, so we're ready to print forms. Again, everybody's running a 4-up form. Our next step is going to be to select what we want to do. We can print them to screen, we can print them directly to PDF, we can print them to the printer. I know most people like to have that PDF copy, an electronic copy, if they need to reprint something later on, employee lost theirs. That's usually the easiest way to do it. So I would start out by doing a PDF for all payees and say print. It's going to have you save this form. I'm over that. And it'll bring it up to the screen. It'll tell you how many W-2s you have. This is how they'll all look. Should run all within your perforations. If you wanted to print directly from this file, you absolutely could. We've never had any issues with that. And now you have, all you have to do is file save, and you can save that anywhere you need it to be, and you'll have that electronic copy. When you're ready to print to a printer, you can do your print forms. Again, you're 4-up. You want to do it to the printer, and it'll tell you what printer it's going to use. If this printer is incorrect, you need to change your default printer. To do that, you can go into Start, and sometimes it's called Devices and Printers, or just Printers. When you click on that, you can find the list of printers that you have, right-click on one, and do Set as the Default Printer. Once you do that, you will have to close out. I'm going to test something real quick. See if you have to go all the way out of the application. Yes, you do have to close completely out of Magfiler and relaunch Magfiler to get that new printer set up. Go back in, find your payees, and when you go to your print form, it'll now have your new printer set up. So select your default printer. Say you want to go to the printer and you want to do all payees. You would just hit print and you would be off and running. If you want to do a single payee, make sure your alignment's good, anything like that, you can always do that, and then come back and run all your payees. Or print from the PDF file. At that point, you have options. All right. Any questions on Magfiler? And again, you'll get those walkthrough instructions with your install of Magfiler. And we'd be more than happy to sit down and do W2 printing together if you need to. Okay. So we'll go back into our magnetic media, and we're going to print with authority forms this time. Select your authority forms, select your year, your type. Again, fill out, make sure all of this information is correct. We're going to say local, say OK, and it's going to create this CSV file, again, out in our data folder for these employees. We'll say OK. Your authority forms, as long as it's open, it should automatically pull the file in. I, unfortunately, am out of folders to look at. We can only look at 2, and we have more than that, so I'll have to load mine manually. But it will be out in your PayX data folder. And it will be this file that we created a few minutes ago, 211. Very good. You can open it. Again, yours should automatically come in. From this point, you can just do a right click and a print. When you do that, you can select your printer. Again, I would recommend doing them again to a PDF printer. As soon as you install Magfiler, Magfiler automatically installs a PDF printer for you, so you can use that one. You can say OK. And eventually this will pop up with a save box since we did it to PDF. There it is. So we'll save that. Did our forms print correctly? Yes, they did. And again, we can go and see that PDF file. Looks very similar to our Magfiler file. Has all the data on the forms filled out. And again, you could print directly from this PDF file if you'd like to. If you'd like to print it through authority forms, all you need to do is go back in and do another print. It'll ask you if you want to reprint the entire job. You can say yes. And then just select the actual printer you would like it to go to. And say OK. And it will start printing out those forms. Any questions on the printing, W-2s, Magfiler, or authority forms? Okay. Okay, so we've been through our form print. We have electronic copies saved. We have our printed copies ready to give to our employees. Now we need to go ahead and get our IRS file created. Again, we're in the Mag Media menu. From our drop-down, you need to select the SSA W-2. Our tax year again, 2016, employer type S. Make sure the rest of the data is correct and say OK. This will create W2 report.txt and it'll be out in your data folder. If you have or if you want to check that file, you can use the SSA's file check before you upload. It's called AccuWage, and it is free. Download it from their website. You can check the file before you even upload. This report here is just going to give you a readable version of what's in the file, basically totals for your various taxes, what you're reporting, and how much for each employee. So you'd want to print and save that, I would say. Once you've ran that through AccuWage, if you would like, all you need to do is upload that file out of your data folder to the IRS website, and you are all good. Again, they moved that up to January 31st that you had to file electronically for your W-2s and 1099s and ACA. If I remember correctly, they pushed all those dates 30 days to March the 2nd. So you need to have your ACA, your W-2, and your 1099 files all loaded to their respective IRS or Social Security websites by March the 2nd. No longer March 31st. It was the 31st of January. They pushed it. Now it is March the 2nd. If that changes, we will be sure to send out an e-news to let everybody know. Try to give them as much lead time as possible. Again, same steps for your Ohio file. Same things. Say OK, and it'll create the 2016 W-2 report out in your data folder. And if I remember, they wanted these on disks. Ohio wants you to burn this to a CD and send them the disk. If you need help with that, there's no one in the office that can help you with that. We can help you. It's a pretty easy process. Just need to put a disk in one of your disk drives, go into My Computer, and you should be able to just drag and drop the file onto the disk and it'll burn it. Again, if you have any questions or aren't confident in that process, give us a call. We'll help you out. Again, it'll break down your Ohio W-2 data in a nice readable report. Make sure you print that out. Keep that saved copy, printed copy. Okay. We've been over. Checking back through, make sure I've covered everything. Any questions so far? Any more questions? Oh, city reporting is also.
Yeah, Rita.
Yep. Thank you, Amy. So again, when we have our Rita, you should have your Rita W-2. These, any code that you need to report, it needs to make sure it doesn't have skip out here. And you need the local code. If it's blank, it also gets skipped, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so you have to have the locality code entered in there, and then just say OK. And again, it'll create that 2016 Rita file out there that can be loaded. Again, gives you a breakdown of what it put in the file. Just put these two because these are the only two we actually had codes for, and give us a total. It's the same. Again, these processes are the same for any of these. CCA, if you submit files directly to any of these cities, I don't know that anyone still uses these. Dayton, Bowling Green. I think we have one client that does use this one, or a Xenia. If you file any of those with those local tax offices, it's the same setup. Again, add your local code, say OK, it'll kick out a file, and you should be able to either send them that file or upload that if they have that capability. All right. So we've got our W-2s done. We've got our federal, state, local reporting done. We still need to do our ACA. Just like our W-2s, these can be run after you've done your file reset. Does not make a difference. You tell it what year data you want to pull, and it pulls. We'll start in our reports. Under your state and federal reports, you have your ACA 1095B data and ACA 1095C data. The majority of you will be on C. B forms are for very small, under 50, and certain insurance requirements. There are not very many 1095B reporting out there. The majority of you should be 1095C. If you have a question about that, contact your insurance provider. They can definitely set you, because there are some tricks to whether or not it's, if you have under 50, it comes down to whether or not what kind of insurance plan you have, and they'll be able to help you with that. So we'll do the C. It'll be the most common. We enter our year, whether or not you're self-insured. Again, if you don't know, contact your insurance provider. Put in your contact telephone number. Don't worry about spaces or dashes. It makes no difference in the file. When we create it for the IRS upload, it formats itself correctly the way they want it. Enter in your plan start month, so whatever time you guys have open enrollment, that's going to be your start month, and you can add that here. If you're doing voids or corrected, give us a call first. We'll want to walk that through you with it, otherwise that should be blank, and we'll say OK. It's going to tell you that it created this 1095C CSV file, and it'll tell you how many lines it picked up. As far as the ACA reporting, there is no minimum for what you have to report. If you only have 10 employees, you're still required to report those 10 employees. You don't have to file electronically if you have less than 250. So if you only have 100 forms, you can paper file those forms. If you have 250 or more ACA forms, you must file those electronically. Other than that, I don't know of any reason that you would not have to file some sort of ACA unless your insurance provider is filing for you. Again, contact them. They'll be a great deal of help. Okay, so at this point, we now need our ACA spreadsheet. So if you ordered ACA print, the typical place that it is stored when you install ACA print is in the C drive. Under your I'm on the wrong system. Hold on. Sorry about that. So, once you install ACA Print, if you ordered it, if you go under your C drive, under your program files, or program files x86, under your CMI, and under your ACA Print, you should have two files. This is what they'll look like. This is for the B forms. This is for the C forms. As far as the ACA Print disk, we are in the stages of testing with the IRS. That should be wrapped up here very shortly. I would expect disks to get printed early next week, and again, those will get sent out as soon as we get them printed. Again, expect those maybe shortly after the holidays. What?
With instructions.
Again, those will all get sent with the instructions with screenshots attached. Okay, so that's where you can access the file. If you wanted to, you could pull it out and put it onto your desktop. And now you have that file out here to use. There is a new file for 2016, and that's why this is our new 2016 ACA file. Nope, I got the wrong one. Sorry. Sorry for jumping back and forth, but I can't install everything on one PC. All right, so out in this folder, this is what the master template should look like. So we got rid of a few columns. If you remember from last year, we had quite a few control text columns. Now we're just blank and kind of there, and everyone asked questions about them. No one knew what to do with them. The IRS was going to use them, and they weren't. We just got rid of them. IRS doesn't need them. We don't want them. Same columns otherwise. You should have your general employee information, then followed by all of your employer information. You'll see the plan start, and then all of your offer codes for your employees. Once you get past that, if you have dependents entered into the system, it will pull the dependent data, and you'll have their name, their social, and their date of birth based on what you entered, and you'll just have to fill out the month that they were covered. Again, if you haven't already done it, it's very important. If you come into your personnel maintenance, if you pull up an employee under this dependents tab, this is where we pull all of the information from for your dependents. Again, the only things we care about are the name, the date of birth, and the social. Some people get hung up on this initials column. As you can see, I just numbered mine. It doesn't make a difference. Like I said, yeah, just use a number because this has to be unique for each one of these records. That's the easiest way instead of trying to use initials. And again, we pull name, date of birth, and social security number. Yes, Henry, this is all available on client server and authority. It's available for both. Did you, and you did 1095Cs, Shannon? I was under the impression that they didn't need included. I know what you're talking about. I'll follow up on that and make sure. If we need to make an adjustment, we can. That's a very easy adjustment to make. None of our test files have failed for that, so that's the only reason I'm not sure. And you have a deadline to refile your 2015 forms. Okay. All right. Get with me. I can make sure we get those refiled for you. When's your deadline? So the questions that we are getting answered, we had a client that filed their ACA forms last year, and the IRS told them they were incorrect because the employee was not included in the section 3 of the form. If you know the form, I'll show you. Right. And we were just discussing this. The employee information here, they said needed to be in this section down here as well and filled out with months, even though we told them the months up here that they were covered. Again, I haven't had any testing rejected, and we didn't have any testing rejected last year for it. But Shannon, I'll get with you. We'll get those resubmitted with them in the part 3, section 3 as they requested. Again, Amy, that is correct. Amy said it all depends on whether or not you're self-insured or not. If you notice this checkbox, and it says check this box and enter the information for each individual if you are self-insured. So if you are not self-insured, you get you don't have to fill out any of this data. Oh yeah, of course, Shannon, you guys are. I would expect that. And yeah, that's why when I went ahead and did the export in PayX, I made sure to click yes on that, are you self-insured, just so that it would pull my dependent data. If you put a no in that box, it will not pull your dependent data. Yeah, if you have a no here, no dependent data gets pulled in. All right. Again, we have our spreadsheet. These are our 1095s. These are individuals. Our 1094 is our cover sheet. It's mainly just our information or your information, general information about the entity filing. And again, you have an instructions tab that should run through all of the instructions for you from start to finish on printing those forms in e-filing. So our first step, PayX, we've got the file, we're ready to go. So in here, we need to go up to the view, and we need to look at our macros. Oh, we have an access question. So if you're under this reporting and you don't see these items here, you need to give yourself access to them. I believe they are lines 125, but let's double check. Uh, 129. So if you have access to line 129, you should see both of those reports available to you. Okay, so we're back over here. We went to view, and we're going to look at our macros. We have a few macros here. We can check data, create the XML is what's going to create our upload file for the IRS. Our export CSV is not used. It was going to be part of an authority forms option, but this is just easier. And lastly, our import ACA data. If you're not doing ACA reporting, that's the no, we haven't done our annual file reset. But if you're comfortable with that, you could leave. We'll just be covering ACA in the actual file reset. Okay, so we're going to import our ACA data. We click on this one and we do a run. We have to find our file. So again, that was out in my data folder. And this was that 1095C file that we printed off or created a few minutes ago. We'll go with open. It'll populate all your data. Okay, we had a question. If you don't have a PIN number to electronically file 1099s and W-2s, do you need to apply for one? I do believe you do. If you contact the IRS, they can get you set up with that. I do believe you do. There is an application to fill out, and then they will give you that PIN number so that you can electronically file. Yeah, it has nothing to do with MagFiler. That's just something to e-file with the IRS. You do need a PIN to do that. And you'll do that, yeah, again, through the Mag Media menu in CMI. Okay, so we pulled in our data. As you can see, we have test data. I'm going to go ahead and just delete off these first two lines because they are no good. Again, this one is no good. And from here, you can see that we may have some items that we need to fix. Any four-letter states or all spelled out states need to be two-letter states. You will have an issue if you try to electronic. You won't have an issue printing, but you will have an issue electronic filing with those states spelled out. Again, you have some of this where if it wasn't entered with commas in the employee file, it won't come over correctly. So you'll just need to make those corrections. Okay. If there's anyone on this that you do not need, you know you don't need to file for them, you can just highlight the row and delete them off of the spreadsheet. I'm just deleting the ones with blank lines, some of these. Okay, we need to fix. Either way. All right. So we proofed through our employee data. Again, if you did this on the front end, like we discussed at the beginning of the webinar, most of this data should already be cleaned up for you. We have all of our employer data in the middle. Again, this is going to be the same for everybody. It should be. It should grab those fields that you filled in, your phone number, are you self-insured, and the plan month. Here's where you'll have to start entering data. So these all go in 3-column sections. Your first 3 columns will cover all 3 months. So if they were covered the exact same for the entire year, you can do all of your coding in these all months. This involves an offer code, an amount, and a safe harbor if there was any. This can be blank or 2C is the most common. If you have any questions about these codes, ask your insurance provider. They should know exactly what code you should be coding these as. If they were not covered the same for all 12 months, if their amounts changed or their coverages changed, you will need to fill out the individual months. And again, you can add, these will be drop downs, you'll just add the cost. and if there was a safe harbor or not. Doesn't necessarily need to be. That field can be blank. You'll want to do that for all of your employees. Again, you can see these March, April. We tried to alternate the colors to stand out. May, June, July, August, September, October, and November, December. Now we have our coverage. First thing we're looking at, we want to make sure you must have the name. This name must be an exact match to the Social Security on file. They're going to check that against the social or the date of birth that you entered, and if it doesn't match, it will reject the file, or that line of the file. You don't need both. If you have both, we'll fill both. You just technically need one or the other, and then all we're doing here is putting X's in the boxes that they were covered. If they were covered all year, we're just going to put an X in this box. If they were covered for January and February and March, we would just highlight those 3 boxes. Okay? This is just alternating through all of your dependents. You have your covered 2s, your covered 3s, covered 4s, so on and so forth. At covered 6, there is a break where you can do voids and corrected. Again, if you're filling either one of these out, please contact us because we'll want to walk you through it. There are some other slight changes that need made. After that, you'll have your covered 7 through 18 all out here. Most people won't have 18 dependents, but they are all out here. If you need to fill them out, that's the max the IRS allows on the form. And once you have all of that, you are ready to do your data check. And back up in your macro, you can run your check data. Click on this, say run. It's going to go through, and it's going to tell us anything that's incorrect. So in row 4, column 3, so it doesn't like our SSN format. That should make a difference. Oh, I know what this is. This does not have the most recent data check. Okay, this has been updated and is not in this file yet. I apologize. But basically what it'll do is it'll go through and it'll find the first piece of data that it finds incorrect. It'll flag it, and you must correct it before. This will have some issues. Until we can get that. Okay, so then once we fix this, granted it's the wrong column, again, sorry, it's going to go to your next row, and it's going to say our covered 2 individual must either enter their social or date of birth. So you would go out to that covered 2 individual, make sure the date of birth or social security number is correct and formatted correctly, and then go back and run it again. Run it again, run it over again until it says no errors found. Once you have your no errors found, you're ready to save your file. So you can just do a file, save as, and then go out and save it. Well, save it here. We'll call it test, and we've saved our data file. Now we need to load that data file into ACA print. If you haven't ordered ACA print, You will not be able to print the forms, the PDF fillable forms, and you'll need to contact your account manager to get that set up so that we can get you authority or ACA print. Okay. So now we are ready to do our ACA print. Here's our 2016 form. What we're going to do is we just fill the data onto this form using our ACA print program. Close that. Once you've installed ACA print, it'll be under your All Programs, CMI, and ACA print. You need to select the location of the Excel file that has all your data. This is the one we just saved. I moved it into a file I have access to. So here's that test file that we just saved. We're going to go ahead and open it. You need to select an output file. This is where it's going to automatically save PDF copies of all of your forms. Select an output file. I go ahead and create one on my desktop called ACA Forms, and I use that. Then you need to select the form type that you want to print, whether that's 1095Bs or 1095Cs, or 1094, 1095. And then you need to, this will only print to your Windows default printer. So again, if you come out to your devices and printers, whichever one has this green check mark is your default. If you want your forms printed to a different printer, make sure you right click and do the set as default. Another thing you want to look at on your printer setup when you're ready to print forms, you need a printer that can print duplex because we print the instructions on the back already. So if you go into your printing properties, nope, printing preferences, I apologize. Printing preferences, you should be able to tell whether you're going to do single-sided or double-sided print, and then you also want to set it to landscape. We want to, doesn't look like this printer has the capability of printing on two sides, so we definitely want to use a printer that could print on two sides. There it is. Okay. So again, make sure that we are doing our landscape and black and white two-sided in landscape. There we go. So that's what it should look like. We want to print front and back, and we want it landscape. So we would say OK. Make sure that's our default printer, and we'd be ready to print. Okay, not sure about that one. So again, you have this option that will produce PDFs only. It'll ignore the printer, and it'll just create PDFs. I'm going to go ahead and check that box because I don't want to print off forms. But when you check this box, you can say print forms. It'll ask you if you've set your default printer correctly. Once you have, you say yes. And what it'll do is it'll start running through creating the data and printing the forms. So you'll see this, it's running through the data, adding it to the form. It'll tell you what row it's on. So if you have multiple 100 rows, you'll know kind of where you're at in the file. Let this run for a second. This can take a while. If you do open up the file, you'll actually see the ones that have already been created, and any new ones will jump right in there. I've been doing some testing, so there's multiple files in here. Either way, you can open up any one of these files to actually view it. If you want to see what the file is going to look like before you print, it'll show you exactly that. Show you all of your dependents. This is why we do the print on the back, because we're going to print this on the back of page 1, and then any additional dependents would flow over into the second form. And we didn't fill out any of this, but you would have. Right? We'll close that. Close that. Almost done. Okay, so if you're going to, we had a question about how do you send Magfiler or ACA print, what company we use, Postal Service, FedEx, UPS. I'm not 100% sure which one we use. I can find out. If need be, just let me know, and I can find out. I'll have to ask. We're guessing FedEx, but we're not 100% sure. If you do need to know, give me a call, let me know, and I can ask. And yes, so I do anticipate that those discs getting printed next week, and again, getting out to you guys that following week with the holiday. I would assume sometime around the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, early there, you would have your Magfiler and your ACA print disc. Okay, so this is back to ready, so we know it's completed. If you ran these off to PDF first and then wanted to go straight into the printer, you could uncheck that, hit your print again, and send them all to the printer, and have your forms from there. Once you've got all your forms printed, they look good. You can print off a second copy if you're going to paper file your forms. If you want to electronic file your forms, we'll need to go back into the spreadsheet. So you would reopen your spreadsheet. Again, we're going to do our macros. And this time we're going to do the create XML. When we hit run, all it's going to do is ask for a place for us to save it, because the IRS wants a specific file name based on the info that you have in the file. So we name the file ourselves. So just pick where you want to save it and say OK. That should work. Working in a development system. I'm going to pull up some of our test files because I know all of those work. Okay, this was just a test file, some basic data. If you go into your view in your macro and you do your create XML and say run, pick where you want to save it, whether that's your desktop or a file, and you'll say OK, and it'll give you your XML file created complete. This will kick out 2 files. It'll kick out a manifest file. It'll kick out a request file. You'll need to upload both of these to the IRS ACA AIR website. If you filed electronically last year, you know the processes that we went through to make that happen. It was quite tedious. We aren't anticipating those same issues this year since that was the first year of reporting. You should be able to still use your same TCC number as last year. You should not have to submit another test file like we had to do last year. If you have not filed ACA electronically and you would like to, contact the IRS immediately to get your TCC number set up, because that is the longest process. It usually takes a couple weeks for them to get you a TCC number, and you cannot submit a file without a TCC number. If you have any questions about that, filing electronically, and you didn't do it last year and would like to do it this year, contact me and I can get you set up, show you where you need to fill out all your stuff to get that TCC number. That needs to happen immediately. The sooner the better, especially with the moved up deadline. All right, so that is the ACA process from PayX to electronic file, printed forms. Any questions? Okay, so we'll move forward. So now we have done all of our maintenance. We've looked over our employees. We've looked over our deductions. We've done our add-on maintenance. We've done our reporting. We've done our W-2 print. We've done our ACA print. Both can be electronically filed. Now we are ready to roll the year. Again, you can do the ACA print and the W-2 print after you roll the year, but in this case we've already done, so we're going to go ahead and roll the year. In your processing menu, at the very bottom, you have 3 items in your annual processing menu. Your annual file reset, your year-end overlap reset, and your purged reconciled checks. You should never really have to purge reconciled checks unless you went ahead and overlapped and now you're on the same check stock and you need to clear out all checks. You should never have data issues that you would have to purge because you're out of room anymore. Okay, so our annual file reset is going to roll us into 2017. It clears out the data from your quarters 1, quarters 2, and quarters 3 from payroll. It keeps your quarter 4 data so that you can run a pension report, do those W-2 prints, any of that other stuff that needs a IRS 941. That information is still available because we're only clearing out the first 3 quarters, and all of that information is held in quarter 4. Quarter 4 is cleared out by the year-end overlap reset. We're going to do the annual file reset to get into 2017 so we can start running payroll. The year-end overlap reset needs ran after April 1st and before June 30th. You have that whole time. Mark your calendar. When you get into April or May, go ahead and run your year-end overlap reset. That's going to clear out your quarter 4 and make that available to add your 2017 data. You should no longer need that. You're past all of your IRS filings. You should be past any employees losing anything that they may need data for. And you can run that end-of-year overlap. If you do not clear it out before June, you can run it prior to April, absolutely. As soon as you feel, and once you're done with pension reports for 2016 and you don't feel like you need that anymore, you could run it in February or March. It's not going to hurt anything. Your ODJFS report is another one to consider. You'll want to make sure you run that for your quarter 4 and get it submitted before you do your overlap reset. But no, as soon as you're done, you can run that. It doesn't hurt to wait, but if you wanted to run it in February or March, feel free. That data will be gone though if you run into something. So again, if you do not do your overlap reset before June, and the system will start reminding you in May, if you ignore those reminders and get into June, process payroll, get into July and start processing payroll, programming will have to go in and fix your payroll system, which can be charged as a fee for those hours they have to use to restore your system and move the files manually. So just be sure that you run that overlap reset sometime before June 30th. Okay, so when we do our annual file reset, we want to make sure that there is nobody in PayX. We don't want anybody to hold up our file or cause corrupt data because they run an employee record. You can check under your utilities and your system, and you can list database users, and you should be able to tell by the application who's in what. I know I'm on port 15,000, so this is me. I know no one else is in the application PayX, so I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and do our annual file reset. Again, it'll tell you all the files that it's going to clear. You'll put in your confirmation code and say enter. It's again going to remind you, have you done that archive save? Have you backed up your payroll system? Have you completed any and all employee data changes? Again, make sure that all that is done. And your confirmation code again. This is a question that we get a lot. There's normally buttons down here that you can click to do enter. It's a screen resolution thing. If you don't want to bother changing your screen resolution, enter does work. If you can't see this box because of the screen resolution, we will have to change it, but anytime you should be able to hit enter to get past any of those other screens. So it will make you do 3 authorizations to get to this step. Make sure you click this box for the last time, and then you can start your reset. Now our file reset is complete. We can go in and look at our year-to-date withholding report. We should have no data. There's been no year-to-date. If you want to go in and look at some employees, you should see year-to-date data is completely wiped out. This should be all zeros. At this point, if you've had withholdings on a record, that one to use. If you've had withholdings on a record that are not needed anymore, if they've been 9'd out, but you couldn't delete them off of this screen because they had year-to-date data, you can now go in here and delete these out and then resave the employee record, and you won't have those deductions on the employee record for 2017. Another thing to do when you go in, if you click on your YP, your year prior, you should get a 2016 up here. Yeah, again, that's our system. This will say exclamation point 2016. So we want to run back through when we do the annual file reset. The annual file reset, you want to run it after your last payroll, after you ran your reports, after you've done your, you ran your last payroll, you've done your reports. At that point, you can run it. You need to run it before you enter your first payroll of 2017. That's why you can go ahead and just make sure that you have your files checked, you ran your last payroll, you've got your reports, you can go ahead and do the reset and then do your W-2s and your ACA and those other things after the fact. But you got to make sure you're done with your payroll entry for 16. You've ran the reports you needed for current year. You've done your maintenance on your employee records and on your deduction records. Then you can do your file reset. If you do not do your file reset and you enter your first payroll of 2017, again, programming will have to go in and change that and correct that, and there may be a fee associated with that. If you have any questions about when to do the file reset or would like us to be on there with you when it happens, give us a call. We'd be more than happy to do that. So at this point, are there any other questions? Very good. If you guys think of any questions that you have, give us a call, let us know, send us an email to support@civicacmi.com and we'll get those answered as they come in. Thank you very much. Always good to hear. Yes, all of the webinars are recorded and they have to be converted and loaded to the website. We will send out an e-news when that's done. It'll have a link to it. Expect that early next week, Monday or Tuesday. I told them I'd get all the files to them today to give them some time to get those uploaded. Okay. If you don't have any of the doc for the end of year, they are available on our website. If you go to civicacmi.com, scroll down. We have it on the front page here, the end of year documentation, and you can just select on the item that you would like. And I would imagine they'll probably put a link for the webinar recording somewhere in here. I don't know if they'll put them under these or a direct link. But yes, those will be sent out in e-news as soon as we have them available. So if there are no further questions, thank you everyone for attending. And we look forward to a smooth end of year. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.